All right, so out of all the people that I get the opportunity to talk to, I have to admit, you have one of the most interesting journeys to where you are now. So talk to me a little bit about how that journey began and even where you're at now.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Well, it has been a different journey, I think, than most. Right out of college, I entered the Navy and did not marry well, twice. So I feel your pain through the divorce process, and I'm very empathetic. And my poor marriages, I would say, created enough trauma and PTSD that I had immune disorders, four autoimmune disorders ultimately, and had to get through PTSD through a variety of therapies, including EMDR and anxiety and other stress relief things. And so my health journey began way back then. And I tried, Western medicine doesn't really provide a health model, it provides a disease model. So there's no medicines for autoimmune disorders. So I was eating clean and living the clean life, exercising, drinking water, really taking good care of myself. However, when I actually finally got it right. I finally got the marriage right. There's hope for everyone, I have to tell you, because I was never going to date again. Let's just start with that. But I ended up just having a gift that was my husband. He is an angel in all ways, shapes, and forms. He's just been such a blessing in my life and the lives of my daughters. And um, he, however, after over a decade in marriage, was diagnosed with early Alzheimer's. This began a whole new level of interest in health and research into health. We ended up going out of country 4 times for stem cells through IV and injection. We actually tried so many things. We did gene mapping. We did microbiome testing and interventions. We did infrared sauna. We did red light therapy. We did the IV stem cells 4 times and saw no results. We did hyperbaric chamber, no results. We did ozone therapy, hydrogen water, daily strength and high interval training, sleep protocols. I mean, you name it, we did it. No results. Nothing improved. In fact, he was declining so rapidly. Early Alzheimer's is more aggressive, but he declined 14 years, what normally would take 14 years in 2 years. So I'm now I was in a situation where I have a husband that's essentially cognitively poor and disengaged altogether from even conversation, not even trying to talk because it was just too challenging. He would ask the same questions over and over again. He was no longer his personality. He was more like a zombie. He was a shell of his former self, and it was really hard. I had reached a state of depression. I had broken my foot, sprained my ankle. I had been 5 months in pain, and my coping mechanisms, which had been walking around the neighborhood and doing all of the, pickleball or getting out and about, they came to a grinding halt when I hurt my foot. So, and what that also did was where I would go get myself a glass of water before my broken foot. Now, when I asked my husband, could you get me a glass of water? And he looked at me like, I'd really like to help you, but I don't, he'd look at me like this. He wouldn't say it, just has no clue what to do. Could not bring me a glass of water. So I realized how severe things were. And I was sort of up close in person instead of just going and getting my water. I had to sort of work through this. So it was a really rough time when a friend of mine introduced me to this new technology. And she said, I know you've gone out of country for stem cells. This will activate a copper peptide in your body that will activate. Now, for those of you outside of the United States, it will activate your stem cells. For those of you inside of the United States, I'm going to call them master foundational cells because the FDA and FTC has decided that your stem cells are a drug. So I can't say that. And I have to be also very careful to say that our product is not intended to cure, treat, or prevent anything, even if it does. That's not what it's intended to do, but it's intended to help you with your health and optimize your health. Now, I will tell you, My husband's symptoms changed in the first day, night and day. First of all, he didn't take the 3.5 hour nap that he'd been taking for a year. He was really alert, very conversational, and he returned to his funny and flirty personality like that. I experienced pain relief. I had energy. We both got better sleep. And we really did a sleep protocol where you stopped eating 3 hours before bed, you grounded, you got your eyes on the morning sun, you had red lights only at night. We were doing all the things, and still I could only get my husband into 15 minutes of deep sleep, which is when the brain washes itself out and sort of sweats and cleanses. So it's a really critical time, particularly for someone with Alzheimer's. And both of us were still struggling with deep sleep. And in the second week, he went from 15 minutes best recorded to an hour and 25 minutes of deep sleep. So really phenomenal. Other things changed. He regained the ability to whistle, to drum. His blood pressure dropped 37 points. He regained a sense of smell after 5 months. And I had all of my symptoms of sadness alleviated. Just they dissipated in a 2 to 3 week period. I had joy and gratitude again, and could live in a whole different space. I also all the symptoms that I had of a variety of autoimmune issues, from fainting as a result of not getting enough blood to the brain that had happened since 2005. So almost 20 years of that. They actually had prescribed a medicine to raise my blood pressure. Doesn't that sound like a bad idea? And I will tell you that I had no more of the fainting and I haven't since I began these amazing patches. So that's how I dove into this new technology and began sharing initially with just family, mom, dad, sis, you got to try this. And, my sister, who had had 6 years of microscopic colitis in just 3 weeks, no longer had any symptoms of that. Right. So it was remarkable time after time again for friends. And since then, it has been a calling of mine. I am a very private person. And if you would have looked at me on Facebook before all of this, I would have not had a single solitary footprint other than to say, this daughter graduated from the Air Force Academy and this daughter graduated from the Naval Academy, and we're on our way. But that was it. But I felt it was such a disservice. I was so mad when I found out, hey, over 300 Olympic athletes were wearing these in the 2008 Olympics. There are pictures of people like RFK, Mike Tyson, Serena Williams, Michael Phelps. I've been told Tom Brady. I know of many Kansas City Chiefs wearing the patches. So they don't want people to see their competitive edge in this, but I get that. But when I found out that this was around and people had been using them for 20 years, I was a little bit annoyed. Actually, I was a lot annoyed. I was angry because I had done a lot of research to try to help my husband, and I had not seen anything on this. So the fact that my neighbor is telling me about this was just amazing, and then to see it work so beautifully. So I'm kind of on a mission to help people. Particularly, I love helping people with especially pain and especially depression or anxiety or sadness, because they've lost hope in so many cases. And you spend a lot of time talking about stepping into the light and really being in nature. And what I love about this is all about, like, this whole technology is all about light. There's so much hope in light, and you have a whole podcast on that. And I love that. I love so many of your podcasts are just so spot on. But the one you talk about, stepping into the light and out of the darkness and the hope, and that's what I've been able to offer. So it's incredibly rewarding intrinsically to help people who have 15 pain. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your pain? It's a 15. How long has it been like that? Years. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And we take them into no pain in less than a minute. And it stays that way to the point where, and a week later, she says to me, Darlene, it's not an understatement to say you've saved my life. Like, that is how tremendous this pain relief is. Other people, different things, different issues, right? But I absolutely am so excited about the future, because what happens is when people start patching and they feel better and they no longer need the pharmaceutical medicines. They no longer need thyroid medicine, depression medicine, blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicine. They don't need, you name it. They don't even need as much insulin. Their A1C drops. It's just extraordinary, because what this is doing is activating your own master foundational cells. And when you're 30, they're half of them are dormant. I didn't know if you knew that. I didn't know that at the time. When you're 60, they're almost all dormant. And so what happens is this, by elevating this copper peptide called GHKCU, that copper peptide begins to activate your dormant master foundational cells. And they are what made you. So they can go in and they can go fix, they can repair, they can regenerate, they became your brain and your lungs and your heart to begin with. They can go in and debride scar tissue and rebuild fresh tissue. And there are infinite studies. We have over 130 clinical studies, many double-blind, placebo-controlled, peer-reviewed, and we're in 82 different countries. So this is not I think that we're the fastest growing company 4 years in a row now. It is extraordinary, and yet so few people know about it. And I think it is worth knowing about. It's worth everything, because given time, it's not a matter of if it's going to help you. It's just a matter of when you're going to notice it, because those master foundational cells will go in and they'll work on the most important life organs and things that are going wrong with you. You don't even have to have a name to it. You don't have to name it. You don't have to own that disease or any, issue. It's just going to go help you optimize your health. And I have never found anything more worth talking about in all my life than that.
I think there's so much in there that's just not only inspirational, but outright beautiful because, we get caught up in those labels and the pain and the agony and the things that we struggle with. It all ties together and builds that gigantic storybook of self-suffering. It's comfortable to stay there. It's very comfortable to live that way. But when, especially with what I do and the way I present things, is I like to tap into that sense of adventure, that thrill and the excitement of there's something on the other side of the hill. And when you get to that point, it starts to really fill up your own personal glass, per se. And then when it starts to fill up and overflow, you had not only the energy and the experience behind you to be able to share that, but you have this special motivation. And I think that's something that we both can really relate with is we've been through the hard things. We sat within the labels and let that affect us. And then there came that day where, in my case, it was the rear view mirror of my truck. In your case, it was something a little bit different, where we realized that we got to go over that hill. We got to start exploring. And that's where these benefits really, really start to come together. And I think it's really worth noting to take a couple minutes to talk about the uncomfortable side of stepping into the unknown and
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah, you're so right. Um, you know, there are people who don't want to get well. They actually sort of thrive in their victimhood. They enjoy the attention, or it's very comfortable. And even the notion of leaving that shell or that skin behind and stepping into a new version of themselves that is healthy, that is happy, that is out of pain is almost a scary notion, because they've lived with those things for so long. And the fear of, the neat thing is this is the tiniest little thing, right? There's no drugs. It's non-transdermal. That's why the Olympians can wear it. There's nothing going in your skin. It's just like when you go out in the sun, Mike, your body takes that light signal and it makes vitamin D or melanin, right? And we all know this. And we also know, like when you're out there in your campfire, if I were to look for you with night vision goggles on, I would see you. There would be light in your body. You glow. So there's light inside of you. So all this patch is doing is like a double-sided mirror reflecting your light back into you at a very specific wavelength. And that is what is doing the hard work. So it's safe, it's easy, it's affordable, $99 for 1 month supply. You wear it 12 hours on and you take it off. You can take it off and throw it away and start with a fresh patch the next day. It gets mailed to your door. There's no prescription. There's no contraindications. So all the reasons for people to be afraid are eliminated. There's even a money back guarantee. So why wouldn't people try it? And yet there were people that don't. And for me, my thought was I only needed to work for one person. I really only needed to work for one person. There are thousands of testimonials of people that had worked for before, neurological issues, all sorts of issues. And I was like, I just needed to work for my one person. And it did. And those things that improved stayed improved. Other things have continued to decline. So I want that to be clear. This is not reversed my husband's situation, but he is living a higher quality of life, and he is happier, and he is interacting, and he's funny and flirty, and he is his personality again, which I had lost, almost over a year and a half ago. So I'm very grateful and very happy. And one of the things that's part of this journey into fear, you've talked about, you had a great podcast on grief, and I would say that I'm in the middle of grieving the loss of my husband, right? He stands before me, but he's not the same man, right? It's this ambiguous loss that people speak of. And a lot of care providers in your audience understand exactly what I'm talking about. It can be with a parent. It's often not with a spouse at this age, because this is pretty young. I'm only 59. So for it to be happening this early in my life. And so initially there was a lot of fear around that, right? Oh my gosh, I have to figure out all the things in the house. What does he even do that I don't even know? How often do you change the salt in the water softener and change the air filters, right? How do we operate the spa? I don't know. These are things I just didn't deal with. And I had to learn it all and figure it out. And now, many years into it, all of that has become my new norm, and it's very comfortable. And the things that I was afraid of were silly now. They're silly. I'm a perfectly competent, capable person, capable of stepping in and doing these things. I just didn't know. I not only didn't know them, I didn't even know what I didn't know. Like, what are you not able to tell me that you did that I don't even know you did? So I think there's when we can just step our fear aside and say, you know what, I am so capable, and I am going to live this day in gratitude and with joy. I'm going to create the joy. I'm going to intentionally create joy today. And that's going to be the way I live this day. And I'm not going to feel guilty about it because my husband is ill. I'm not going to feel guilty about it because I am alive, and I'm going to be grateful for being alive. And I'm going to step into that life and do what I can to love him and love others and help others. And by not focusing on me, by focusing on helping others, I do help me in the end, right? Just like you do.
Abs-
Just podcast
Absolutely.
and helping others.
There's actually two things in there that I think are really important to kind of talk about how they coexist, and that's the grief and the gratitude. Because when you put them together and you look at them for what they are, it makes dealing with the grief and the transition so much easier, because you're highlighting the ability to celebrate. You're able to match the drumbeat of the earth with your heart in a way that makes it makes it positive. It brings you back into the moment and gives you that freedom to really enjoy the memory of what it was. And it softens the actual loss that really fuels the grief.
Yeah. There are so many people dealing with such hard things in this world. Um, you know, I think cardiovascular disease is the number one. Is it the number one or number two killer? Maybe it's number one. I think it's the number one cause of death. I think every third person to sometimes 50% are going to have cancer. And one of the things, people haven't heard of this GHKCU peptide, I'm pretty sure. But when you look at, there are entire books written about it. You can actually Google it in PubMed. When you look at books like How to Reverse Aging, A Comprehensive Guide to Copper Peptide, and there are chapters and chapters. When you look at this 50 years of study, you actually find that the studies prove that elevating GHKCU resets genes to their younger, healthier state and actually resets programmed cell death of cancer cells. It even resets genes to fight against cancer. It improves the brain. It actually causes nerve regeneration, improves growth factors, which improve wound healing, improves heart health. In fact, every 6 weeks, they found the cardiovascular system improved by 8 weeks, as if it were 8 weeks younger. And there are even pictures, EEG pictures of brain scans where you can see the improved nervous system and the reduction in inflammation and the improved memory. Like you can see it on the scan. And those studies are available to be viewed on my website. And there's lots of information there too. There is no solid reason for other than maybe skepticism, but then I'm like, well, what do you have to lose? It's a sticker. Like you're gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater and not even try because you're afraid of. What are you afraid of? The fear can't hold you back when it could change your life, when it could be the thing that makes all the difference in the world, not only to you, but to your loved ones. I mean, my willingness to try this, which I had zero faith in. I had a lot of faith in going to Mexico and getting IV stem cells. I mean, I paid $15,000 for IV of stem cells for him and another $15,000 for me. And we did it 4 times. If I was ever going to have a placebo effect and believe something was going to work, it was that. And it didn't. And I don't know why it didn't, but it didn't. Now, those were placenta stem cells. They're somebody else's. They're not mine. I think it's a very different thing when you're activating your own master foundational cells in your own body. Your own body knows what to do. Your own body has innate wisdom, just like the innate wisdom that you're finding every day in nature, just like the trees and the leaves, and you see it out in nature every day. That's inside of us too. We have the ability to change our epigenetics, and we have multiple cells, millions of cells that are dying and renewing every moment. So we can change our body with our mind through meditation, like we talked about, Mike, ahead of time. We can change our body through light, like your own light with this patch. We can change our body with what we eat and what we're drinking. All of these things can make a difference. So why not? Why not just put the fear away and step in and create the new world that you want to be, and create it in your mind and create it in your existence, because I think we can do that.
And I think it's really just a matter of understanding that within the environment around you, the resources are there if you're willing to actually take the time to involve yourself with it. And as we start to come toward the end of our time, you gotta let people know how they can get in touch with you, what you got going on, coming up, all that good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So the best way is really my website. And the website is iamreverseaging.com. I'm a retired Navy commander. I did 20 years in the Navy. My husband did 30 years in the Navy. I've been a dean of a boarding school. I've been a vice president for McAfee. I'm director of client services for a network and technology company. I've done a lot of things in my life. I even helped to build the Returning Warrior Weekend program for our veterans that helped them better reintegrate after war and their spouses. That was incredibly rewarding because I had very seasoned veterans say to me that it had saved their marriage and it had saved their lives, because I witnessed and watched them not doing so well and then beginning to do well after we pulled them together and educated and got them talking in small groups and discovering each other's experiences were very similar. I would say that was actually a hard job to leave because it was so intrinsically rewarding. When I stepped into other things, they didn't hit that heart button for me. This job does that. And you can reach out to me on my website, iamreverseaging.com, and I will connect with you and I'll offer a free consultation. I don't charge for that. And in fact, I even do a weekly presentation with a doctor. There are a ton of doctors that are incorporating this into their practice. In fact, famous plastic surgeons that are having their patients wear them 3 months prior and 6 months after, because the healing is so vastly different. It's at least like 50% faster, and multiple patches can even. We've had one cardiologist who said that, and he presented to the American Health Association, and he showed pictures showing a 500% improved wound healing. That's how much difference these can make. One of this an anesthesiologist named Dr. Joseph Peck said, he's a 40-year physician. He said, this is the most significant medical breakthrough in my lifetime. And so I would invite anyone to reach out to me. Tell me what's going on for you. You know, I'm always going to start with this patch that activates your master foundational cells. If you only wanted to do one patch ever, that would be it. You just need to think about patching for a month for every decade you are old, and expect about 10% improvement a month. Regenerative science and rejuvenating those master foundational cells doesn't all happen overnight. The resetting of genes actually happens in 24 hours. You can reset 4,200 genes in 24 hours. But the actual reduction of inflammation and all of the things that you want to have happen, this is a slow process. You didn't get here overnight. You're not going to get out of it overnight. But it's worth doing. And I would be delighted to help people on their journey to health. Certainly is a passion of mine. And I can't tell you what a difference it can make to all of your audience. There's nobody, there's kids to adults to grandparents. There's no one that doesn't need a little bit of something.
I think that's the important part, is understanding that it's okay to want and need something and go out and find an avenue that fulfills you. You know, Darlene, thank you so much for taking the time to celebrate your journey with me. I don't believe in the words goodbye, so until we meet again, whether it's this life or the next, I wish you a safe and prosperous journey.
Likewise, Mike. I thank you for all of the goodness that you're putting out in nature and in the world. I appreciate you and your podcast, Mike.
Thank you for that.